Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a special meeting of Council to complete the agenda from the last Monday's meeting. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Deputy Mayor Keaveney for actually taking the last two meetings for me. Thank you very kindly. I invite everyone to rise for O Canada. Let us begin by thoughtfully acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We respect the culture and spirituality of all Anishinaabe, Métis, and Inuit peoples and resolve to live in peace and friendship with all diverse peoples living here. And now I'll just invite you to join me in a moment of silent reflection on today's business. Thank you very much. I have to ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Seeing none, just a reminder to bring it forward should it occur to you. Items 6 through 10 were addressed during the regular council meeting held on June the 22nd. So at this time, I need a motion to move into committee of the whole. Mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Keaveney and Councillor Urick. Thank you very much. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. So the first item here, the recommendation is, be it resolved that Committee of the Whole recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford enact a bylaw to govern the proceedings of Council generally as outlined in Report Legislation 2026-08. Can I have a mover and a seconder to Councillor Greenfield and Deputy Mayor Keaveney? Thank you. And I wonder if our Deputy Clerk, Ms. Penner, if you'd like to give us a bit of background on this.
Certainly. Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor. The procedure bylaw is the bylaw that governs the proceedings of council's meetings. So when we call meetings, how we call meetings, and how we move through the meetings as they take place. This is required by the Municipal Act. And so we've always had one in place, but it is best practice to take some time to review every term of council, every few years, just to make sure that we're keeping up with the times and that it's still suiting the needs of council. This is your bylaw, so while staff is proposing some changes, some ideas for how we see improvements that could be made. Certainly, if there are changes that you'd like to see, if you disagree with the suggestions that we've put forward, we would take those. In the interest of time, because there are several changes outlined in the report, I wonder if it might make sense to take questions rather than have me go through the changes.
So questions, Councillor Bell?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a few questions, but I'm going to pick on this one first to start with. And it's under the expulsion for misconduct at section 8.0 points 1 and points 2. So behavior that constitutes misconduct, heckling, inappropriate language, body language, facial expression, display of offensive, partisan, political material, signs or placards is not permitted. And the chair may expel or exclude from the meeting any person who, in the opinion of the chair, has behaved improperly. I would like to just focus for a moment on members of our public who have in times past come to council meetings with signs and placards. I don't want to remove that from them to have that right to do so. I believe that when we're talking about the misconduct, it has to do with how disruptive that can be to a council meeting. I do not see that if folks come and they believe in something and they wish to have a placard, bring that with them, just sit there. We as council can look out and we can see that. Yeah, okay. I believe that in our Canadian society today, I personally am witnessing a lot of things that are being removed from us. And I just personally believe really deeply that if a person wishes to come to their council and they wish to bring a placard, they're not waving it and hitting their neighbor sitting in a chair, and they're not misbehaving, Mr. Mayor, I would like to have that particular part about not bringing a placard not being allowed. I'd like to have that struck, because I really believe that when, in my case, Mr. Mayor, when I go to the cenotaph and I look there, there's a lot of things that a lot of people laid down their life for. And one of the things is that they can come in this free society, and if they wish to do that, I want them to be able to do that. So that's my point on this item, Mr. Mayor.
Can I just ask you-
To other conversation.
Would you like to make a motion and we could discuss it in more detail? Or do you want to wait until you have a number of things that you may want to make a sort of an omnibus motion?
Well, if that's how we need to do it, then I move that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Seconder, Councillor Urick, thank you. So let's go ahead and discuss it. Perhaps you'd like to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I have no problem with your thought, Tony. I agree with you. I think it is placards under themselves. The only thing I think you're probably still gonna have to put in there is somewhere about propriety. Because, for example, in the last few years with freedom of speech, there were a number of signs that were going around about Mr. Trudeau with a certain verb in front of it that you probably wouldn't want in council chambers. So appropriate signage and placards only would be allowed. So if there's anything that's obviously problematic, should be removed, because otherwise it could get pretty vulgar.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this. And Councillor Bell, I'm sorry, but I'm going to disagree. I think placards are still distracting, and they are permitted, I believe, outside of council chambers so that we can enter and see those messages. And I believe within our current agenda system, people have the opportunity to come to the microphone and express their concerns. If they have a particular issue that they wish to speak to, they can have their deputation or public question or do a presentation. They can speak to us in that way. I know at Grey County, this came up, and placards are not permitted inside the council chambers at the county level because it is seen as a potential, distraction to the proceedings. So I would like to suggest that we continue with the system of allowing them to be outside and encourage members of the public to come to the podium and speak to their concerns and follow the county's lead on this one. So thank you.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thanks, Councillor Bell, for bringing this to our attention. I certainly don't have any problem with our residents bringing their concerns forward. I'm just wondering, later on in this report, it says something, about when a group is making a presentation or a deputation, they would designate one person to speak for the group. And I'm just wondering that instead of having a council chambers full of placards, if whatever cause is being attempted to drive home, we would allow one placard inside the council chambers to expressing the opinion of the group. Just wondering if that could be a bit of a trade-off. I'm a bit hesitant to have a room full of placards. I think we have maybe a couple of times had that, and it is no doubt about it. Council gets to realize there's something going on, something that is not in agreement with a lot of our public. But I really hesitant about having a number of signs, placards in the council chambers.
Go ahead, Councillor Ennis.
Very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Not to be pedantic over words, but I would note that the deputy mayor said that signs could be distracting. And I think I would align my thoughts align with they might be distracting, but I'm okay with that. It's only if they are disruptive that I would find myself having an issue. And sort of bringing in Councillor Greenfield's points of if someone's giving a presentation, or having let's say one sign per issue. When people give presentations, we allow them to have slides, and I don't think we should not allow them to have something physical. Like if they wanted to bring a Bristol board because they're not good at Microsoft PowerPoint, that would be okay. So to bring a sign, as long as it's not disruptive, and I think it also kind of depends heavily on context. Maybe the room is full of signs, maybe there's one or two people. But as a blanket ban, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good way for people to show their message in a way that's maybe more conducive to their communication skills. And so if we can find a middle ground of allowing them, but not having the whole people in the back can't see because there's so many signs. If we can find a middle ground there, I could be happy with that.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, just curiosity, so I just quick dive, and it just obviously says while municipal councils are required by the Municipal Act to keep their meetings open to the public to observe the political process, the right to observe does not automatically grant the right to participate or protest. And interestingly, it does say that most, it does not give an X number, but it says most municipalities in Ontario do not allow signs and placards. Just looking at just what the mean averages are, what the general standard practice is, most do not allow.
I'm going to just throw in my 2 cents worth here at this point. It really falls on the mayor to control the meeting and to enforce decorum. And the mayor has a number of options if he's confronted with a demonstration within the council chambers. I think there's a difference between people participating in the meeting and people disrupting it. Or so I think it would really be the mayor's responsibility and prerogative to eject people in the audience who are not conforming to what we ask, that they consider themselves participants in the meeting but not demonstrators in the meeting, because the demonstration was outside as we came in. And I do think there's a very short list of rights, and once you start taking away from the list, you get down to basic rights, which is not, in my mind, a principle that we want to encourage. So I'd be inclined to vote for Councillor Bell's motion, with the understanding that we will expect the mayor to perform his duties in conducting the meeting. Allison, you have some thoughts on this, and go right ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to highlight that Section 8 is not a change. So this exists in the 2017 procedure bylaw. This is the standing provision that we've had. And so over the years, when we've seen folks come in and they show maps or they show signs, and that's been allowed, and that's because that's the mayor's prerogative, as you've suggested. So I would say that having this rule in place gives the mayor something to lean on if the mayor thought at that time that it was becoming misconduct, it was getting out of hand. It provides an option for the mayor to say and something to point to. I wouldn't say, for example, as you had said, if someone can't use PowerPoint and they want to show you a picture while they're making a deputation, I don't think anyone would call that misconduct. But this is an existing provision that's sort of a just in case. There's so many signs in here, it's a fire hazard sort of a thing. Thank you.
Did you want to weigh in at all, CAO Everett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Allison did a great job of just outlining that. I do just want to acknowledge though, when somebody comes and they're handing out pictures or maps, those who are listening and watching on video won't have the benefit of that. So they could provide that information in advance, be part of the agenda, but it just always needs to be very clear that when people just bring stuff ad lib, it's not like we are doing a mass circulation of the material that they provided. So oftentimes they think that's the case. The other thing is, and I completely agree with the mayor, this is the mayor's room. This is the council room. I believe it has to have the utmost level of respect from those who are in it. In our particular case, this room, if we were to start having individuals with placards, it would get really busy in here. And oftentimes I would say there will be one side that has a certain placard, maybe the other side has a placard. When you start having people holding it up, I don't know how it wouldn't be disruptive if you were in the back row and now you see in the back of a placard. So ultimately it is at the mayor's discretion. I always say that's why they give the mayor the gavel. So it's, I think it can go either way. It's just the discretion that the mayor provides.
And I can tell you that my experience, short experience as mayor, you tend to want to give people their rights, and you want to try and have a meeting where they do express themselves and participate and feel that they have not had their rights short-circuited. And what I have found from time to time is in endeavoring to follow your instincts, in 2 or 3 seconds, somebody can make a move that is entirely inappropriate, but those 2 or 3 seconds are over before you have a chance to get a word out of your mouth. And I've been embarrassed more than once in this room in that manner. And in particular, it was a planning meeting, and somebody went over and pretty well pounced on one of the people in the audience and made very, very serious threats. Very loudly, and as I say, it was over in a flash. I certainly said, "You are on your way out the door. Please hurry," But the damage was done in my mind. So it's not easy to conduct a meeting that doesn't get out of hand momentarily anyway. So, Councillor Ennis.
So just thinking, I think maybe then there should be like an 8.3 added. We could say something along the lines of behavior that constitutes misconduct, such as heckling, use of inappropriate language, body language, facial expression, those kinds of things, not permitted. And then the usage of signs or placards is up to the mayor/chair's discretion.
Yep, that's, would you agree to expanding the the motion to include that?
Yeah, that would be all right, Mr. Mayor. My energy behind my comments is I don't want to see people muzzled. Some people may not feel comfortable going to a microphone, and yet they feel comfortable just to tell us. Like there's so many issues that we always have, and I just don't want to see them feel unwelcomed or muzzled. And that's my point. To the point of my fellow counselor adding another point to this section 8. You know, we're basically talking about the responsibility of the mayor, yes, and any chair of any committee has that responsibility for decorum and order when you're in that position. So what I have noticed, and I know that other members of council have noticed this, we as a municipality do not do an information to the general public when they come to speak to council. When they come to speak to council, we know, as we do, we go through the chair. Folks will come and they will turn their back on the mayor, on the chair, and then they will address the folks. And that is grandstanding. And then you have to bring them back to make them address the chair. And so another one is that sometimes I've witnessed when developers come into a room and then folks wish to have comment, they will point their fingers at the developer. They will say things and engage them eye to eye. It makes for a very uncomfortable situation for a developer who's trying to do something, go through the mayor. So I don't think that a lot of the folks who come to council have a little understanding of the true respect that really is need to be generated, because that would only lead the mayor to say, your behavior is not right. I witnessed yourself, Mr. Mayor, when we had an older gentleman. He was very, very, very upset. And before the meeting even started, you went over to him and you talked to him. Said, you're in council. And other words that you said that I didn't hear. But your job was done when you went to that person and said, you're coming to council and we want to hear you. But there's a way to approach this council. And I think that we need somehow in the future to let folks who come to council know they're welcome. We want them. We want to hear from them. And there's a way to do it. And when you speak the way we want to hear you, we listen. And when people start misbehaving, I don't know about the rest of my fellow councilors, but my instinct sometimes is I almost want to tune that one out. It's just turning into not a good program. So I leave that for all. I think you've all seen that. So as far as my fellow councilors saying adding 8.3 up to the discretion of the mayor, folks come with placards, I can go with that. Thank you.
Anyone else before we vote?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with your amendment or amendment to that. And again, I would still harken back to just appropriate and respectful signs. And because again, if you lay the ground rules in advance, the mayor has a much easier job of enforcing them. Because again, you've seen anti-pride ones downtown and the verbiage is not respectful at all, or it's not proper. So to be able to kind of lay that groundwork for the mayor to be able to say, says right in here, everything has to be respectful and appropriate. That makes it a lot easier to define the rules as well.
The deputy mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then who would make that determination? Do we need language added here, or is it up to the mayor or the clerk to review signs when they come into chambers to make sure that there is no profanity or threatening language or anything of that nature? Who's going to be the decision maker on the signage?
CIO Everett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To that question, I would say it's the mayor, especially in this setup, because often the staff have their backs towards the audience anyways. So I would say, and I would say it would be a joint effort. I think, you know, any member of council may have a different sightline. And to me, any counselor could make a note to the mayor just as a point of order. Yeah.
Um, Go ahead, Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, your worship. I would think that under the current legislation with strong mayor powers having been given to our municipalities that it would be a natural for the mayor to take control in this type of situation.
So Allison, do you have a motion framed there? Could you maybe read it to us?
Certainly, and through you. This reads that the draft bylaw be amended to strike or signs or placards listed under section 8.1 and add a section 8.3 that states the display of signs or placards deemed to be disruptive, offensive, or inappropriate in the opinion of the chair may be grounds for expulsion from the meeting.
That work? If you're ready for the vote, all in favor? Those opposed? So that's unanimous, and thank you everyone for your participation in that. Other points, I'll let you go there, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think I'll kind of put these two together because the situation is the same. Where we speak about bringing forward a council inquiry or a notice of motion and the request to have that provided to the clerk prior to the agenda, so it can be included in the agenda. So I'm just wondering if there's any flexibility with that, because, you know, as we all know, things come up during the meeting, questions arise, or the need for a notice of motion. So we're going to be flexible in that, or are we going to be hard and fast that those inquiries and notices of motion must be provided in advance? So I just would like to hear from my fellow councillors in that regard.
Did you want to speak to that first, Allison?
Thank you
Thanks.
through you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, if I may, the intention here sort of goes along with a softening of language in a different section. So the idea would be that anything that comes up in the course of the meeting, so a deputation or a presentation, a motion could be made about that item without the need for a notice of motion. And then for things that you were thinking of that were more developed, that were coming from outside the meeting, that those would require notice of motion. And this turns what effectively right now was a 3-step process back into the 2 steps that it should be. This was advice that we received from clerks on call from the municipal experts, that what we have been doing here historically is actually a little bit too much to require that you provide notice orally, that we print it, and then that we speak about it. So you can provide notice in writing, and then it's addressed the first time, and then the discussion and the decision can happen at that subsequent meeting. Is that clear? I'm sorry.
Okay. So where are we on that?
Mr. Mayor, if I may follow up then with Allison, so just so I'm clear, so whether it's an inquiry or a notice of motion, if that is provided to yourself and included in the agenda, then at a following meeting, then that inquiry or motion would be addressed. So does that eliminate the 2 weeks in between? I don't think I'm exactly following you.
Thank you. So I'll address this sort of in 2 parts. So for something that came up through, for example, a presentation or a deputation, as we often do, someone makes a request and then you act on it by making a notice of motion. In those cases, no notice of motion would be required. You could say, I wish to support X organization, and we'll give them the budgeted money that we have available to us. That would be able to be, can happen at the same meeting. For something that requires funding outside of the budget, it would require the notice of motion. For something like, for example, the notice of motion that appears on today's agenda, so that would be provided in writing in advance. You would introduce it to the meeting on the day, and then at the subsequent meeting, we would have the discussion and the decision from council.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is on the notices of motion that we're talking about absolutely and specifically. we have in this council many times, had a guest speaker and say something, and then a council member says, oh, I'd like to waive the procedural bylaw and I'd like to move right forward to do something. So we always need to be careful that we don't do a knee-jerk reaction, that there is time and there is forethought. What, on the notice of motion, what I have always enjoyed is that if you bring something forward, then you get the opportunity to meet with staff. Maybe they help you with your wording. Maybe they help guide the mover to really articulate really exactly what you're really trying to bring forward. So now this says that if we're going to think about bringing something forward today, we should have engaged a week ago, basically, so that when we bring it forward, it is formulated exactly the way it needs to read. So I'm not so sure whether I really like to change it that way, because things do come up in a council meeting that sometimes that is the moment when a councillor really feels, oh, I would like to do a notice of motion on this because of what we had happen here today. And that's all, as far as I'm concerned, you need to say. And it gives that another, some cases, 2 weeks before it comes back, lots of time. So what I've heard Allison speak, I would like to hear, Mr. Mayor, the CAO's view on this, because this falls into the realm of our decorum and our behavior, bringing things forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to Councillor Bell. So I prefer that where a notice of motion is being brought forward, that it be prepared in advance. And I'm also a firm believer that notices of motion are brought forward by the individual councillor, and that councillor owns the motion. During the discussion, what I've also been used to and is, as a notice of motion, there cannot be any substantial change to the notice of motion. So if council discusses the notice of motion, the intention of that motion cannot be changed, because that was that councillor's motion. The other reason I like them being prepared in advance is because then they become part of the agenda. So the public sees what's coming forward via a notice of motion. So they can decide whether or not they want to be here in person or watch on the video, because now they know the intention of that notice of motion. So I think one thing outside of what I would typically call a notice of motion, and I think this was mentioned, was during a report or during a presentation. What I was always used to was at any given time, and was never a notice of motion, at the end of the presentation, a council member could simply say, I'd like to make the motion to direct staff to bring forward a staff report in the future. That's okay. That to me is not a notice of motion. That is just as a follow-up to a presentation, a council member, it still needs a vote, but you can act more on the fly. And, you know, I still, after a presentation, if somebody's been asking for X amount of dollars, no. Where there's the decision to expend money, I typically think it's a good one where do a notice of motion, because everybody needs that second sober thought as to whether or not to approve the spending of money. So I think there's pros and there's cons. I think by having that prepared motion, I think it streamlines things a little bit better. It also, I would say, it makes it harder to make substantial changes when you've already supplied it in advance. When you're just talking about it and say, oh, by the way, next week I'm going to bring this notice of motion, I have seen where maybe the intent has changed a bit, and it was not the original intent, but as through the discussion, it's shifted. And that's not really what the purpose of the notice of motion is. It's completely fine if a notice of motion loses. And then you can go back and change the intent, but you're not working under that original notice of motion. The last thing, I think all municipalities, or a lot of municipalities, are getting away from this. I was always taught early in my career that a notice of motion is the counselor's notice of motion, and staff should stay out of it. Because it's not staff's notice of motion. That's council directing staff, and I have seen where, that notice of motion really sounds like a staff notice of motion, and that's not what the purpose of it is. It's the counselor bringing forward their idea through a notice of motion. I do think that over the years, there has been a lot of help, even during the course of council meetings where, Madam Clerk, could you help us with this, with this motion? That's typically not a staff role. That is council, I remember back in the day when every council had their motion pad and they would write their motion out and then hand it over to the clerk, and it was council's motion, not a staff motion. So, yeah, it's really at the however council feels, but looking at Robert's rules, there are nuances that we like to stick to as much as possible. Hopefully I didn't confuse the issue.
Councillor Greenfield and then Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Your Worship. Excuse me, and thank you to our Deputy Clerk and our CAO for their comments and explanations. I'll start with the inquiry being forwarded the preceding Friday. It's very unfortunate, but sometimes questions arise on a Saturday or a Sunday, and they need to be dealt with in an expeditious manner. Now, that doesn't often happen, but it does happen. I'm a little hesitant about that. Certainly, if possible, yes, I have no problem getting a question into staff members. I know in the past, and I apologize for this, I have put some of our staff members in a difficult situation because I have, something has come up and I haven't given them any idea that I was coming forward, and I'd like to see that not happen again. I'm trying not to do it anymore. As far as a notice of motion, I like the idea of time, a time elapsed from when it is first introduced till it comes forward to a council meeting. However, here again, in emergency situations, like I think about the flood this spring, that we didn't get a week's notice there. We didn't get really 24 hours notice, and like if a notice of motion had been necessary to provide additional funding or something out of the ordinary, then we couldn't have waited 2 weeks for that. So I think we have to have a bit of an escape clause here that if indeed something does have to be dealt with immediately, it can be, and maybe we do have those tools in place, but so that's where I'm at. I certainly inquiries in advance, notice of motion in advance, yes, as much as possible. But I just don't know if there may be situations that rule won't work.
Do you, CAO Everett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to Councillor Greenfield's point, there are a couple of mechanisms that we have that that we can utilize. So in the case of where there's an emergency, internally we do have the ability to do emergency purchases. Secondly, and I think most effectively, we do have the ability to work with the mayor to call a special meeting of council. And I believe that requires one full day of notice. So in a situation where there was something that was very much time sensitive, we could call a special meeting of council. So those are two mechanisms that and for those ones where it's a special meeting of council, it's not like we would need to we wouldn't need to have a notice of motion. It probably will, a special meeting of council would probably be attached with a staff report. And to bring council up to speed or to make a recommendation or a request.
Deputy Mayor, you were gonna, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify as I nodded at Sean and I was wrong. We do have an emergency meeting provision and that can be called essentially at no notice. And we just need to provide an agenda after the fact within 2 days. So something like a flood where there was a really big emergency, we absolutely could act right away. And we do also have provisions in the procedure bylaw to waive the procedure bylaw in the case that we need to act immediately. I just wanted to reassure you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comments were along the lines of Councillor Greenfield's in relation to council inquiries. I'd like to suggest, for the very reasons that Councillor Greenfield said, that things often pop up on the weekend, that we provide that inquiry in writing to staff by 10 a.m. on a Monday rather than on Friday afternoon, just to accommodate a little bit of time for staff to be prepared for the council meeting and to allow us to be made aware of any issues that arise over a weekend. So I would propose 10 a.m. on the Monday.
Councillor Ennis.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as somebody who works full time, I often can't get to the agenda until the weekend. So I really appreciate this line of thinking. I'm just wondering if, because like with, for example, public planning meetings, like other times where we might have inquiries, if instead of saying 10 a.m. day of, we say some number of hours before. So if our meetings usually are at 1 o'clock, so 3 hours before. And then that way, depending on when the meeting is and different times and things like that, we're not bound to the Monday at 10 a.m.
Okay. Have we exhausted this particular subject? And I thought there would be many more contentious issues within this. Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with CAO in regards to the notice of motion aspect of it. In terms of the inquiry aspect, I think it's all about being respectful to staff. I know if I have an inquiry on the day, I tend to ask one of them before, and I'm giving them a heads up that I'm going to ask something. And if there is something that cannot be addressed that day, I will hold it back. If it's something that they can answer, then I'll proceed. To Councillor Greenfield's point, you can get questions right up to before a council meeting. Somebody's asking you because they know there's a council meeting that day and they're saying, hey, what about this? And that 2-week limitation all of a sudden becomes, yeah, I'll get you an answer in 2 weeks. Gets to be a little bit out there. So that's why, to me, it's the recommendation is written into there. It is recommended, if possible, that council provide their inquiries too, but being respectful of at least giving staff notice that you're going to ask the question before the meeting, even if it's before the meeting. That's why I mean, I respect the 10 a.m. concept. The public don't necessarily respect the 10 a.m. timeline.
CAO Everett.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think one of the things that I'd like to mention, because I do find council is very good at sending the email out and asking the question. Because quite frankly, a lot of the inquiries that I get, they're really not council discussion worthy. It's a simple question. And if we can provide the answer to that, it doesn't really need to be an inquiry that is made at council. I actually think those inquiries that council are making at council or at a meeting should be, in my opinion, more substantive of more of a bigger issue. But if it's just simply a simple question, I actually feel staff or council does a really, really good job of reaching out. And sometimes if council wants to ask the question, they still can, and it's not for the purposes of putting staff on the spot. It's the counselor wanting to make sure that all of the public who are watching hears the response. But I don't see it as a big issue right now, just because that relationship with council is really, really good, and seems like there isn't a hesitation to make that email just to be able to inform the residents that maybe asked the question.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Mayor, you might find this interesting that in 2014, Mayor Klumpus gave me a little bit of friendly schooling in a very professional manner. She said to me, Tony, there are times when you ask staff questions and you haven't given them a heads up. And she said it would be really more professional on your behalf if you gave them a heads up, because they will probably give you a better answer and they will have a forewarning of what you're going to do. So if former Mayor Klumpus is watching, she made an imprint on this particular counselor. So along with that, when we have questions, I have very recently turned Mr. Colbert here, and I said to him one time, would you mind this afternoon if I asked you a question about the harbor? Because if you can't answer it, I just won't ask the question. And he said, no, go ahead. He did say, you might not like the answer. You're going, yeah, but that's beside the point. But I still, with my day, I did turn and I did ask. And I will say this about the staff. You're always obliging. You always try your very best. If it's important to us, you are all believing it's important to our municipality. So anyway, it all has to do with how we act in a very professional manner. And it is true what Mayor Klumpus said, give them a heads up. It's really not fair. So that's what it's about.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to Councillor Bell's point, I completely agree, because in 2014, there was a little bit of a culture of council trying to, put staff in a gotcha moment. I mean, that was the environment we came into, and that has changed significantly in a good way. So I think that's wonderful. And I think this council understands and respects staff and will always give them, that heads up. But we're looking at this procedural bylaw for a future council, and there's no guarantee that, that the culture will remain exactly as it is today. So in my mind, I appreciate staff's desire to have that inquiry ahead of time, but I come back and suggest that we put some timeline to it. And whether it's Councillor Rennis's 3 hours before or the 10 a.m. on a Monday, it's an either or situation. But I would just like to see us prepare some language in this bylaw now that will create the stage for the next council, so that there is an understanding of how to manage a councillor inquiry. So yes, I would make the motion to go with 10 a.m. on a Monday, and Councillor Rennis can amend it if he wishes.
Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ennis. Go ahead, CEO Everett.
Through Mr. Mayor, if I can just make the recommendation not to be specific to the Monday. Because if it's a special meeting of council or budget meetings, they may not be on the Monday. So it'd be 10 o'clock the day of the specific meeting. Just my suggestion.
Councillor Ennis.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Then I don't know, I'd just be interested if anyone else around the horseshoe has thoughts on whether we go with 10 a.m. or a set time before the meeting. So that way it's very flexible to the requirements of that specific meeting.
So we have a motion to, and your motion, do you want to just restate your motion with a 10 o'clock?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and understanding the comments of the CAO and hearing from Councillor Rennis and recognizing, yes, there are planning meetings that start at 5 o'clock. So maybe the 10 o'clock doesn't necessarily hold true for that. So if we're looking at the day of a council meeting, and if we can come back to Councillor Rennis's thought of 3 hours prior, I think that gives staff adequate time, and they'll know to check their emails at that point in time, and it gives us a chance to get our thoughts together. So I'm fine to amend and go with that, and then that covers any day of a meeting and any time.
So where this is a motion to amend, like another amendment to, okay. So it's, we're ready to vote, I believe. So all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? So that is unanimous as well. Other items of Councillor Ehrig?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Clerk Wilton Seagal is not here today, but she'd be disappointed if I didn't bring up electronic meetings, so I'm going to do it. Because in point 15.5 on page 25, specifically says, so let me back up on page 4 first. It does go into detail talking about how we do want to get to the point with electronic meetings being possible. However, there's no real time frame on that. And that's what scares me a little bit, because we've already talked about this for a few years. I think this should be a little harder and faster regarding what targets we're going to have. And I would like to see for the next council the ability to participate in virtually in council meetings. I can participate in OPP meetings. I can participate in GSCA meetings. I just find it very ironic that I cannot. I've missed a couple of meetings here, and I know a couple of those I would have been able to participate virtually. And I think it's unfair that just because physically you cannot be here, that you can't be allowed to participate. So I think that should be honed down, because point 15.5 specifically states that there will be no virtual meeting, there will be no participation virtually. So that's still cut and dried moving forward about prohibiting that. And I think we should not be moving in that direction in the 21st century.
So is that you're making a motion?
Yes, I would make a motion that by the next term of council, that we do work to upgrade the equipment here to make it possible for virtual participation in council meetings to be possible.
And a seconder for that? Oh. Gave seconding. Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Now it's on the floor. Go ahead and discuss. And you go, if you'd like to speak first, be our guest.
Thank you, and through you to Councillor Ehrig. Certainly, we did take this feedback quite seriously, that the need for electronic and hybrid participation is very real for this council. As you stated, the limitation is the technology piece. And so I would ask that if this is your wish, then we maybe hone down the motion a little bit to say that staff need to include in the budget to put forward for the mayor's budget in 2027, staff need to have a proposal prepared so that can be included at the will of the new mayor. Because by the term of the next council could be taken to mean by 2029 or 2030. Certainly we won't have this in place for November because there wasn't budget this year to upgrade that IT infrastructure. But that would be my request, just to make sure that we're really specific about how we're going to make that happen.
So do you want to add a clause that says, we recommend that the next council budget in 2027 really, it will be for the 2027 budget. They'll be starting to work on it later this.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, I know we haven't budgeted for this year, although I would be bolder than that, because I would still like to see this be a target for the next term of council, which begins in November of 27. Realistically, I know I could put you in touch with a company that could basically assist with this.
Hmm.
With no problem, and it could happen next month, let alone next November. So I'm just not sure. So then it comes back to a reserve scenario. Is there a scenario where, interestingly, I know with we found a bit of money when we didn't, the new software didn't come quite as much as we thought. I remember that coming up in the last meeting. This should not be a very expensive venture, knowing the electronic world and the capabilities of doing this. This should not be expensive, but I realize it will be staff labor requirement to do it. That's what's going to be as much involved as the budget part of it. So my belief is still that this should happen for the next term of council, starting 27. Not because if we put it in the 2027 budget, it's not going to happen till sometime in 28, and we're still missing the opportunity to participate virtually, and I just don't think that's fair.
So I believe Corporate Services Manager Sam Dinsmore will speak to that.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So coming in July, probably the second meeting in July, Corporate Services is bringing a report forward with just that exact thing, requesting to create a budget, giving council some options on what IT upgrades they would like to see for the council chambers. Should allow us by November, December to be ready to go for hybrid participation, and then some other upgrades that we would be recommending.
That's great news. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Tim. I really appreciate that. And so I would make the motion that we, with staff report, be prepared for November of 26 for the new term to be hybrid ready.
You're seconding that? Okay, Councillor Ness? Yes, you may.
I would maybe just suggest including some terms that are a little more specific about the emphasis of being in person when you're able. Because it does say that every effort should be made to convene meetings in person. I wholeheartedly believe that, you know, if the choice is I can't attend or I can attend virtually, then I think it's a great option. But I also don't want to see things moving to be too virtual. So I don't know if anyone has any ideas, Robbie, if you have ideas maybe of how to sort of make that a little stronger. Maybe Sean has ideas. I'm seeing hands, so.
Allison, you go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I think at this point, I just want to caution that the amendment that you're proposing, and I apologize, I should have said this first, is perhaps not germane to the main motion that's on the floor unless you're proposing an amendment to the draft bylaw at this time. So because we don't have a hard timeline for when those AV pieces would be in place, it's hard for us to put a bylaw in place that says this will be effective as of November 2027, simply because I can't guarantee at this time that we'll be ready. And so I wonder if perhaps we could hold that motion that we be ready for 2027 to after we voted on the main motion to bring forward the new procedure bylaw, if only because I don't think we can make the date change in the procedure bylaw at this time.
I think Deputy Mayor is first, and then I'll get to Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate Allison's comments because I was going to suggest that I'd like to see the financial side of this first. I want to see us moving forward with virtual meetings, but I also want to understand the cost that we will see in the report that Sam will bring forward. And just an additional thought, which may or may not find its way into the motion, but I'd also like to see us put some sort of restriction on the number of consecutive virtual meetings, because someone could go south for 6 months and still, you know, participate virtually for that time if we don't put some limitation to, and I think we'd all like to have that flexibility if we're sick or anything can happen, but I would just like to see some limitation as well.
CAO Everett, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in regards to the timing, I've seen procedure bylaws when they talk about the electronic meetings and virtual meetings, just putting the caveat in where available. For two reasons. One, if there is a technical issue, it still allows you to have a meeting. Because the ability to have the electronic meeting just simply isn't there. So if the technology goes down, it's still, okay, we've got enough quorum in person, you can still have that meeting. I think the other piece too is it goes twofold where everybody just has to understand that it's not staff's responsibility where the counselor or the presenter has technical issues on their side. Staff is not responsible to walk them through on their side of their technical issues. So again, it's where available. So the other piece, and this is completely selfish on my part, I think council meetings and I think are very, very good for the hybrid electronic meetings. I would caution on the committees of council. What I have witnessed on committees of council, the virtual attendance on non-town issued hardware becomes problematic sometimes. And oftentimes the meetings would be delayed while that member of the public who's a committee member is trying to get set up. And to be honest with you, I think committee, and this is again selfish and this is my own opinion, I think committee meetings, advisory committees are far more productive in person. If somebody's going to sign up and ask to be appointed to an advisory committee, then they're in person, they're a set time, and there isn't the ability to be virtual on those advisory committees. So just it's at council's discretion, and it's just something that I've witnessed over the years with advisory committees and their abilities to run virtually.
Okay. I think Councillor Greenfield is next, and Deputy Mayor and Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, first of all, I was counting the minutes until Councillor Urick brought this to the floor, and it's actually a little bit later than I expected. Anyway, a couple of things. A lot of people have always thought that the world changed dramatically when the wheel was invented or the telephone was invented. The world changed dramatically when COVID struck, and that, to me anyway, was the beginning of the virtual meeting, and it has stayed with us. I'm likely the last one who would really go for virtual attendance. I do like people to be available and present in person at council meetings, but it's 2026, and I think the desire, the need on occasion for council members to meet virtually is it's a fact of life. It's out there. I hear what the deputy mayor, I believe, mentioned is something about missing an excessive number of meetings in person. Seems to me maybe Grey County had that problem with at least one individual this last term. So I think I'm not sure how we put a limit on what the correct number would be, but I think that's something to be dealt with. As far as putting a timeline for switching over to virtual, I'd be a little hesitant about that. I think we need. I'm okay with the intention. I'm okay with giving staff direction to establish a system, but I remember 4 years ago when we were going to have an STA bylaw, early this term, and that didn't happen. So I'm just a little reluctant to set a date for this switchover, but I think it's a sign of the times. I think it's a reasonable request, and I think we should make that option available for council members.
Thank you. Now, was there somebody waiting? Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Harley. I'm sorry it took so long to get to it. So, and again, not cheating, just using tools available. Standard clause that happens in a lot of council meetings is, and let me, right off the top, yeah, I don't want this to become a virtual forum. You would expect people to be here. It's in cases where they can't, it enables them. So a standard clause reads, a member may participate in a regular or special council meeting by electronic means. However, no member shall participate electronically for more than choice of 2 or 3 consecutive meetings, nor for more than 25 or 33% your choice of the total regular meetings in a calendar year without the prior approval of council via resolution. So they puts guardrails on it so that your people aren't abusing it, but it does enable them in circumstances to partake.
okay, are we ready to vote on this motion?
Well, it depends on whether we're putting it here as per Allison's recommendation that
Oh, that's
fitting
true.
it into a bylaw where it might not actually come to fruition by the time the new council comes around. I'd be prepared to make that motion after we're finished with that. You go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Councillor Urick, if that's okay. I think I found a way to fit it in, if
Oh,
you'll humor me. So if you wanted to do that now, we could amend the main motion to direct staff to bring forward an amendment to the procedure bylaw to allow for council's hybrid participation once the technology becomes available in council chambers in November 2026.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did just have a final comment. CAO Everett had spoken about committees, and I completely understand where you're coming from on that, but I think that's the level that we've really heard the most encouragement to us as a council, that committee members want to see the opportunity to participate virtually, and we have no idea at this point what committees are going to look like next term. So that's a bit of an unknown, but I just don't want to close that door, because I think every Growing Our Economy committee, for sure, we heard the comment of, they would like the ability to participate virtually. So would just like us to keep that conversation open until perhaps we see the bylaw, until we understand from Deputy CAO Dinsmore, what the costs are and so on, and we establish our committee structure and then have another run at that piece of it. I just want to keep that discussion alive.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To that end, I think that verbiage of that literally limiting 2 to 3 consecutive meetings or no more than 25, 33 were their recommendations. I mean, if you're applying those to committees again, you're still stopping the abuse of people who are just going, yeah, I'm just going to sign up and just show up virtually. That again negates that potential, but still enables them to participate if for a justified reason they can't. And I hate penalizing people who want to participate, even though they want to, but they can't for physical reasons.
I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That is unanimous. And we should get moving on here because we're spending a lot of time on this. Deputy Mayor?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple more points
Sure.
that I'd like to pose for discussion. And the first one is, and I think this Councillor Bell will recall this, I'm looking for a little bit more definition. We see it on page 12, for example, to receive for information, because we will recall a report that we accepted early in our tenure for information, thinking that it was that it was just for our knowledge. And then we saw the recommendations within that particular report falling into our budget, and actions were taken and so on. So I'm looking for more definition between, the actual acceptance of a report and accepting it for information, because sometimes those lines are quite blurred. So I just want the future councils to understand the difference between accepting something for information and accepting it as, an actual adopted report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the deputy mayor. So if council's bringing a for information report, there is no decision that is being made by council. And there's really no recommendation. It really is as simple as a term. Staff is bringing information for council. There shouldn't be any action especially in a budget. If it's just based on an FYI report. FYI report would typically be something in the consent agenda. However, if there is something that staff is making a formal recommendation to council, it would not be an FYI report. It would have an actual recommendation and asking council for a decision. So, yeah.
Following up, Mr. Mayor, I'm glad to hear that from you, Mr. CAO. Obviously, this was a different time and place and things were just managed a little bit differently. And just so as long as you're with us, we'll know that we don't have to be concerned about accepting something for information, that there will be a future report that would come back to council that would have recommendations within it. And we could discuss those at that time for budgeting purposes and so on. So just as long as you're here, we're good.
Through Mr. Mayor as well, the wording in motions is critically important. Where council may endorse or may receive as opposed to approve. That's something that you'll see myself and staff be more sticklers on. For instance, if there's a master plan or if there's a decision to be made on a study. Council or staff will be looking for, do you approve or are you asking for the report to go back with additional information to be brought forward? Council endorsing, council receiving gives us no direction from a staff perspective. And I do know that there have been plans and studies that are good studies. That council of the day, whenever that was, rather than approve, just receive the report. And the public is now looking at, well, when is things going to be done at Memorial Park, right? Well, when you look at the recommendation, there was the recommendation to approve, but council's recommendation that was changed during the meeting was that the master plan was received. So staff has zero direction on how to proceed with that master plan. So you'll see staff be sticklers if during the discussion around the council table, if there is something that we are looking for direction, we'll make the comment, we'll make the point to council that we would be looking for either receiving or approving the report, or if there's specific parts that you want more information to come back with, having that recommendation to come back. So there's a lot of nuances that the team are well aware of, and I know council's well aware of, but when we look at a new term of council, making sure that is covered through the orientation. So when they may see us pushing back from the staff, we're not pushing back for any other reason that we just need direction. Thank you.
Councilor Ennis.
I just want to get some clarity on that through Mr. Mayor. So if we receive a study back and that study has a bunch of recommendations attached to it, and then council has said they approve, not just receive, that means that staff will then go and proceed with the recommendations that came with the study.
That is correct. My expectation of staff would be if it is a long-term plan, those items that council may approve in the study that may not have been budgeted yet, those aren't approved without further budgeting being complete. So my expectation is the recommendation would be worded in a way that, projects contained in the 10-year project, those that have not been budgeted over the next 4 or 5 years will be contained within the annual budget process.
Okay.
Are we ready to vote? Do you have another point?
Yes, if we're ready to move on to a different
Yes.
discussion. Okay, thank you. I'm looking now on page 20. And again, I'm looking forward to hearing from my fellow members of council. We're talking on page 20 about the rules governing closed sessions. And I'm not sure if we need to go into close to discuss this, but just about the way in which we conduct ourselves within a closed session meeting. Is that okay? Because from my personal perspective, I'd like to see, a similar format to what we do in council with people raising their hands and addressing the mayor and so on, rather than speaking freely. So I'm just looking for input on that suggestion.
Go ahead, Councillor Euring.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sure.
I think I've observed when you're chairing a closed session meeting and some people just jump in, and sort of, at will, you don't get the same even distribution or that you're trying to achieve of everyone having an opportunity to speak. So I think that might be a reason to, support your thought on this. I like that they're a little more informal, but I think that they're that is the drawback that I have seen is just that it is hard to keep it moving at times. Councillor Ennis?
I would just offer my thought that I think that's a good idea, though I do also appreciate that it is often a little bit more informal, which I find helps make it easier to get through things that usually are a little more contentious between the members of council. And it just sort of makes that easier to work together. So maybe to Allison's earlier point of it's good to have it specifically written in there so there's something to fall back on, recognizing that within the chair of the meeting's discretion, we can find a way to have that enforced.
Any other thoughts? I haven't heard from a few councillors. You haven't made it a motion, so
Mr. Mayor, the motion would be, I think, within closed meetings that we continue with the raised hand procedure
okay.
for members who wish to speak.
And Allison, you have a point for us?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I think I would just note that section 10.5 already sort of does spell that out specifically in that all of the rules and that govern procedure in open session are in effect, save for the requirement for motions to be in writing or seconded, and that members are allowed to speak to a matter more than once. And so this really would be about the discretion of the chair. So the chair could choose to enforce that to whichever degree they chose. And I don't know that a motion is necessary to make a change here.
Okay, then is there anything else that anyone wants to raise on this report? Then I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And any opposed? So that is carried unanimously. And moving on, does anyone wish to raise anything with respect to memos? We have the building report. Any questions or any thing you want to discuss there? If not, we'll move on to updates from members appointed to county council committees and boards. And Deputy Mayor, did you have a report from county council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two reports, so I'll try to summarize them as briefly as I can. County Council met on June the 11th, and that was quite a lengthy agenda. There was a motion from Owen Sound, which is fairly important to us. And it came from Councillor Scott Gregg, and it read, whereas the County of Grey is obligated to submit a response time performance plan to the Ministry of Health on an annual basis. And whereas the City of Owen Sound has identified rehabilitation requirements for the Owen Sound Fire Hall and the township of Georgian Bluffs and the municipality of Meaford have identified future needs for the Intertownship Fire Department. Now therefore, Council for the County of Grey directs county staff to engage in conversations with the township of Georgian Bluffs, the municipality of Meaford, and the city of Owen Sound, and or the relevant boards to analyze and ensure emergency services are being provided in the most financially responsible manner. So obviously there was a lot of debate about that particular motion. I did not support it at the time because we hadn't had conversation at the ITFD board level, nor had we had opportunities to look at the Georgian Bluffs Fire Master Plan, nor did we have that conversation here at this table or with our own staff. So I just felt the motion was ahead of its best time for discussion. And so at that point, we did invite Chief Goutreau to come and speak to us. And so that motion eventually actually failed at the county level. Jessica Linthorne came that day and talked about the NII, the Nuclear Innovation Institute. She shared that Reactor 3 is back online at Bruce Power, coming in $118 million under budget and 7 months early. Quite amazing. Let's see. There was also discussion on the road transfers. And so I think we're going to see significant discussion at this table in that regard, but and I'll follow up in that in my next report. So we did talk about the road transfers at that day. And the next one also drew a lot of conversation, and this is the beaver coyote bylaw, where we're looking to increase that to $100 for a coyote and $50 for a beaver. And that discussion has been ongoing both at County Council and at the Agricultural Committee on a few occasions and back to County Council. So I think in the next report, we finally have a resolution to that. We talked about the hybrid planning services, and I know that's been a discussion here for a number of years. And we decided that that is not going to go forward for Meaford at this point in time. Okay. And the next meeting was on June the 25th. We met virtually last week because there was a significant power issue at the administrative building in Owen Sound, a main breaker failure. They had a tough time finding parts, but they eventually got them in Quebec, and the admin building was open again last Friday. So again, we discussed the coyote beaver bylaw. And the points we discussed were, should proof of kill be required to receive the bounty? And should the hunters and trappers be residents of Grey County? So after a lot of discussion, we agreed that the proof wasn't going to be necessary, considering that a lot of times the coyote takes the animal right away with them. And it was also decided that hunters and trappers need to be licensed, to have permission forms from the landowner, and they must complete an application process for permission to hunt. So that allowed them then to meet those regulations. And there's also going to be an emphasis in the final bylaw encouraging non-lethal methods of coyotes and beavers, such as fencing and guard dogs. And that was a close vote. It went 9-8. So that's become a really emotional issue. And then again, we talked about the Urban Roads Exchange. There was a meeting, Tori was there and Jenna was there on May the 26th. Members of the Urban Roads Task Force were present. I sit on that committee, and we looked at 3 options that had been presented by county staff. And in the end, we agreed to option B, and it is a long piece, but just to give you an idea of what we agreed to, an updated full replacement funding model for 10 years, $33,671. Traffic signal operational funding, $484,000. Development charges one-time payment of $5.5 million. Future project transfer costs of $2.5 million. And that the traditional funding payment be subject to a minimum annual increase equal to the greater of 5%, or the increase of the Grey County major construction capital budget for that year. a 5-year decreasing operational transition allocation of $730,000 was included with the road transfer framework. And the agreement was amended to remove any language or elsewhere in the agreement making transition payments contingent upon the county's annual budgetary process. And the clause following that either party to request a review of transfer configuration where an updated transportation master plan changes the functional classification. And that prior to the execution of any road transfer, the county will provide the receiving municipality with all available condition assessment data, inspection records, CCTV reports, asset inventory data, citywide records, capital planning information, and known deficiencies for all infrastructure proposed to be transferred. And I know that Tori was really involved in providing comments to the county that helped reach this final solution. And I suspect there'll be a report at some point, Tori, coming to this council that will provide further details of what all of that means for Meaford. And then there was an update provided regarding the Conservation Authority amalgamations. So we discussed that again, and I don't think there's anything new there. It's just that there's still a lot of unknowns about that particular move by the province. So I think, Mr. Mayor, that pretty much covers those 2 meetings.
No, thank you very much. Any questions for Shirley? Councillor Greenfield?
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, through you to the Deputy Mayor and yourself, Mayor Kettner, the fire protection. That's interesting. I think it's reasonable to at least discuss some kind of an arrangement. You mentioned the moment. I think Councilmember Gregg mentioned the most financially responsible, and sometimes the most financially responsible is unfortunately not the correct answer. The other question I have is I see where the mega Ceylon depot is starting to get some attention with the scraping of the earth down there at the corner of County Road 14. Is it intended to be ready for this winter to provide services? It's a huge project, and it is the 1st of July almost. So, and do you have any idea if it can be up and running?
I don't have a definitive date for you. I'm not sure if you do, Mr. Mayor, but I believe that's the intention, to have it up and going for this winter. So if they bring a crew in like they bring into Wasaga Beach to build a Costco, I think they can do that in 3 or 4 months. So if they have a crew like that, it should be ready.
Okay. The Heritage Committee met, but I don't think anyone else, like Councillor Forder, is away, and he's the chair. Anyone want to look into that? Any other boards or commissions had? Let's go, Councillor Yorick, and I'll come back to you, Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I had 2 actually. Again, the Grey Bruce OPP Detachment Board met June 23rd. The board received the 2025 Grey Bruce OPP Detachment Annual Report. I've asked that this report be distributed on the next council agenda. This report completes the 2023 to 25 OPP action plan, and the new 26 to 29 action plan will be released later this year. Some key takeaways from that report were total frontline hours increased from 172,000 in 2023 to 176,000 in 24 to 193,525, with plans to continue expanding that coverage moving forward. So they have listened. They want the public has said they want more coverage, and they're definitely increasing. There was an increase in large-scale drug trafficking investigations led by the Community Street Crime Unit, which resulted in warrant execution, arrests, and criminal charges, leading to a decrease in drug activity and overdoses in our communities. There's the maintained commitment to traffic safety and prioritized impaired driving intervention through an increase in ride programs, which was a 29% increase from 2024. And they enhanced the partnership with the Bright Shores Health System, which results in successfully diverting numerous mental health related and addiction calls for service from the police and emergency department by connecting them with local community resources for crisis and ongoing support. What that means is of the 889 mobile crisis response team calls, only 339 actually required police to attend and only 40 required hospital attendance. So moving on from the report, there was much discussion regarding municipal funding, whether it should be proportional to population. Currently, all participating municipalities share costs equally. For example, Meaford has twice the number of households as Chatsworth, yet pays the same amount for funding. The board asked staff to prepare a report to use proportional funding comparators, such as the Conservation Authority model, and they'll come back and report on that. In other matters, the OPP and MTO carried out another joint commercial vehicle blitz. The 95 inspected vehicles resulted in 81 charges and 41 vehicles removed from service. So it's pretty scary when you get literally about 45% of them being removed. Finally, there was a discussion regarding the concern of continuity for the board due to the upcoming election. Municipal members were asked to inform staff if they were planning to run again in 26 and if they were willing to remain on the board if elected. It is expected there will be a gap of 2 to 3 months where OPP meetings will not be held during the transition period. Even then, many municipalities will not have their appointees set for a few months. Plus, there is extensive advanced training required for new members. Accordingly, members appointed by municipal resolution may continue to sit until on the board until the earlier of either 6 months after the expiry of the term of office or the day their successor is appointed by the municipality. That's for the OPP. Would you like to maybe go to Harley's? You can take a break for me and I'll come back.
Okay, sure. Councilor Greenfield.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I just wanted to report that the Meaford Public Library Board did have a meeting last on the 17th, and I'm not sure if I mentioned previously that we went through our library board our policies at that meeting, and there were quite a few. I think we have six different policies with the board. There were a few changes made, nothing too outstanding, but we do try to check them out annually. And I just want to add that the Miss Richardson from the Friends of Meaford Library has reported that they've had just an amazing spring thus far, record attendance, and receiving a friendly amount of donations. And however, they're encouraging people to, hey, well, we want more. We want to do more, and so hopefully over the summer things will keep going very well there. So I think that's everything.
Okay, thank you.
That.
And back to you, Rob, for the Grace Harbor Conservation Authority report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, on June 24th, the GSEA board were pleased to have a tour and our first meeting in the newly renovated GSEA administration building. The project was completed on time and not on budget, and the board thanks staff for their efforts in making that happen. I encourage everyone to visit. It's a very beautiful renovation, and it's really changed the complexion of the facility. The board received a very early draft of the GSEA 2026 annual budget due to the upcoming election and amalgamation. It proposes a moderate increase of approximately 3.2%, which coincidentally matches the current CPI. There was much discussion as to whether these numbers would be maintained after the February 2027 amalgamation. CAO Lantier advised that while there's no guarantee as to what will happen yet, it is anticipated that the individual budgets of the 6 CAs forming the Lake Huron Region Conservation Authority will be respected for 2027. I asked who will be responsible for the additional funding related to the 3 new levels of governance that are being added. And it is hoped that the province will cover these costs, which will be covered by the newly formed Ontario Provincial Conservation Authority, or OPCA. So stay tuned, because we have no idea whether that's going to require a substantial increase to cover that next year, whether the province is going to buffer us. Further, regarding the amalgamation, the province has enlisted Ernst & Young to collect all related information, staffing, processes, resources, assets, etc., from all the CAs, and GSCA finalized their contribution to this process in June. It's anticipated the appointment of a project executive will be announced in July. And finally, the board recognized and thanks John Bittorf for his years of dedication to the GSEA. Those who know John, he has been a stalwart member of GSEA. He's retiring after 40 years of service. And while John's leaving as the Water Resources Coordinator, he held many positions throughout his tenure and was instrumental in implementing many of the organization's water level monitoring and flood detection processes, many of which have been adopted by other CAs throughout the province. And in his honor, the benthic or bug room, another passion of his, will be named in his honor at the building.
I'd like to ask a question. Yeah, you have a question too. Go ahead, Councillor Bell.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Urick, in the Grace Salvo report, did you quickly mention about the naming of rooms?
I did not go ahead.
Well, thank you. I found that part of the meeting to be really appropriate. So pre-1985, there was 2 conservation authorities. There was the North Grey, and then there was the Sauble Valley. And to that end, new rooms are there in the new administration center. So one of the rooms is going to be called the North Grey, the other one's going to be called the Sauble Valley, and a third room is going to be called the Ingalls Falls room. And the board of directors, upon hearing the recommendation, they adopted that immediately. So I think that was very, very appropriate for that. And Councillor Urick's report was, as always, very correct in what he's presented. Everyone that's on the board of directors there is very, very impressed with the renovations that were done. When you go there now, you get an absolute impression of wide openness, airiness, and yet they really didn't increase the physical walls of the place. It was skylights, more windows, and the staff can move out. And you just think that you've just entered a totally new building, but it's a refurbished building. So I know that there was quite a levy for that. Money well spent. So thank you for your report as always, Rob.
My question is, do either of you want to speculate on what will happen to this building under the new, we are, a tiny portion now of the new Conservation Authority for, good chunk of Southern Ontario. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reality is, so especially in 27, 28, because it is probably a 2-year kind of bringing in of the processes. But it is fully anticipated that each existing CA administration building and staff will maintain their particular processes now, because they know realistically that they're the ones with the breadth, the wealth of knowledge, they're the one with the experience, and they're the ones with the geographic advantage. So they will continue that. Where the concern comes in is literally probably more from our table than it is theirs. That staff is still to be made whole and work as they were. They will just not have their CAO. There will be a joint CAO for the 6 who will work kind of over as an umbrella. The representation from this body or from all bodies is going to be what's going to be lacking. So right now we have full say as Meaford in what's going to happen in the area. Come when they do the amalgamation of the 80 municipalities, there are going to be 1 or 2. There will be 2 representatives, one for Gray, one for Bruce. So you're now reliant on that individual being responsible for Chatsworth or Meaford or West Gray or whoever. So our municipal voices are being diminished greatly. That is the bigger concern, is just because we're still expecting to foot the bill, which in a year or two is going to be increased without the vocal representation or control.
Okay. I think we are ready for a motion to move out of committee of the whole. Mover and seconder, Councillor Bell, Councillor Erig, thank you. All in favor? And we're doing that, Madam Clerk, at 4:39 PM. And now we're going to move on to councillor motions. Are there any notice of motion coming forward? Councillor Greenfield?
Counselor, I'm sorry to interrupt. You've lost your mic there.
Sorry. I hit it, but not hard enough, I guess. Thank you, Deputy Clerk Allison. Yeah, I intend to bring forward a notice of motion supporting the intentions of the motion suggested by the escarpment corridor allowance at our June 22nd meeting, and I'll have more details in the very near future.
Okay, thank you very much. And Deputy Mayor Keaveney, you have a motion for decision today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do. And I will read the motion for anyone listening. Whereas the Government of Ontario has passed legislation to cut red tape, speed up government processes, and build at least 1.5 million homes by 2031. And whereas the most recent 10-year official plan review and update for the municipality of Meaford has undertaken and adopted by council in 2022. And whereas the Meaford official plan identifies a secondary plan area inclusive of Union and Center Streets. And whereas the municipality is undertaking a review of its water and wastewater master plan in 2026. Now therefore be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford directs staff to undertake the following to prepare for and accommodate imminent growth within urban Meaford. 1, consult with the County of Gray respecting the existing policy framework for growth management in urban Meaford and pursuing the Centre Union Secondary Plan imminently. 2, consider inclusion of the Muir Street east of Gray Road 7 lands into the secondary plan area to plan for and advance development of that area. 3, consider the Union Center secondary plan area in the water and wastewater master plan review. 4, include the advancement of the Centre Union secondary plan as a project in the 2027 budget. And 5, report back to this council in fall of 2026 with an update on this work, including how Meaford's growth objectives align with smart growth principles. So I will move this motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bell, thank you. Discussion or questions for Deputy Mayor? Seeing no questions, do you want to speak to, this in more detail?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I appreciate that opportunity. So I think we recognize since the motion mentions the official plan adopted in 2022, and I think we all acknowledge that there have been significant changes in Meaford since that point in time. We are seeing new developments coming in and investments in our community. We've bought our industrial lands, and I think we recognize that there's even a change in our demographic, that we're seeing more younger families coming into the community now and so on. And we talk about the continuum of housing and how we can, obtain that goal of offering housing for all, as we often hear the phrase used. And I think if we agree to move forward with requesting this report from staff back to council in 2026 and in this particular term of council, that we can add to that continuum of housing. And I feel that's important, that we provide people opportunities to have housing, in the urban area, or if they want to be a little bit outside of the downtown, that they can do that. So I think I would look forward to this report and to opening up development into these areas, as we recognize that there is a lot more interest in developing and investing in Meaford.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I like the way that you've put this together, Madam Deputy Mayor. All of your points, I think, are well thought through. And as you just quickly said, you're looking for reports to come back in the future for how we can move forward in this particular area. And I know that when our guest speaker came to council and was talking about this in particular, I know that it's not just that particular person that has got concerns in this area and about this zoning. I've met another person, maybe you have yourself, that it's the same area, and I support that. That's why I wanted to second your notice of motion, and I look forward to in the future when staff come back with a wholesome view on this. I do remember what our guest speaker did say. It was a question I was going to actually ask the guest speaker, but he told us that inside Grey County, there's at least one other municipality that currently does allow the secondary, and I think that the guest speaker said it was Chatsworth, that they already have something in place. So I know when our staff start looking at this, they'll include that so we can understand it. And our guest speaker back when the presentation was made also mentioned that agriculture, in this particular case, apples, the apple orchard and the apple industry is changing. It is one area that does lend itself, according to our guest speaker, to something different for folks. Maybe a larger lot, maybe something with a little more elbow room, something that would also make us a little bit different. But I look forward to staff bringing back this report, and to repeat myself, I think you put it together very well with your points. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Any other questions, Councillor Greenfield?
Thank you, Your Worship. Having been on council for a few years, I can remember two official plans, and they were in existence for 10 years each. And over a period of 20 years, there was very little changed in our municipality. Now that started to change about 5 years ago, and it has changed. The atmosphere has changed immensely in our municipality within the last 5 years. We did a review of the official plan in 2022. We thought we had everything in place, and even since 2022, our situation has changed immensely. And yes, I think this review is not too soon by any means, and I think we're really going to have to keep the doors open as to what potentially could be taking place in our municipality. Councillor Bell mentioned agricultural lands. I keep thinking of a sizable acreage just east of our urban area that is in special ag and did have orchard there, and for the last 3 years it's been growing up in weeds. And these are the kind of things that I think we need to consider. This is certainly, as far as our urban area is concerned, this is not the same urban area of even 5 years ago. It has changed immensely, and we have to change with it. We have to go with this flow and show direction and show leadership. for the next as many years as possible. So, no, I think we should get on with this. I'm just wondering, you're asking for a report back in the fall of 26. Are you looking at this council, next council, or is that kind of an open?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, definitely back to this council.
Councillor Yurick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the deputy mayor. Yeah, I also agree. I think it's very in need. My question was going to be the same as Councillor Greenfield is fall 2026. So that's literally that report could come the end of September, or that report could come the first week, a couple weeks of December. If it's coming December, it's not coming into our even purview. So I'm just, or even late mid-November. So I'm just wondering if you wanted to whether staff felt there was adequate time to do this. And I would hope it would be earlier fall than later, because come the start of November, this council will no longer be, and that's going to be impactful if you want this council to see it.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we could change fall of 2026. I'm looking at the CAO to by end of September. Is that reasonable?
Through Mr. Mayor, I'd have to talk to Director Can to see what would be possible or not. I think the fall, I'm very mindful of, whether or not we go into lame duck for council. There would be limited ability for decisions. So looking at that potential, it's something that I can have that discussion with the mayor or with the clerk, as well as the Director Can on what limitations we will have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Sean. That was sort of the gist of where I was thinking, because I want to ask the question then, because you're right, under lame duck, you won't actually be officially being able to direct and make large decisions. Under lame duck, are you able to make recommendations? Because that's the whole point, having 4 years of experience of seeing what's happened, to be able to recommend to the next council based on the experience and the direction is going, to be able to make a recommendation is different than saying, yeah, you got to do it. Are we able to do that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, through the lame duck, I think being able to provide those recommendations to the next council, it would still be up to the future council's prerogative if they wanted to make the final decision. But it's reasonable to say that this council would do some preliminary work to advance it with a new council. Yes.
Just before we wrap it up, historically, Kent has been a part of urban Meaford for a long time. It's and it is, now quite close to the secondary, well, actually to the community school. So Meaford is moving into Kent as well as Kent is expanding, and I think that thank you for the request for the report. If there's nothing else, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We've got a few minutes to adopt here. The recommendation is, be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford hereby adopt the minutes of the council meetings that were held on May 25th, 2026 and June 8th, 2026. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Bell and Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Any opposed? That is carried unanimously. Anything on the communications agenda that anyone wishes to raise? If not, then we are, what about the some minutes here and the correspondence list? Anything on the correspondence list you want to bring forward? Okay, then it's at 4:53 and we are going to move into a closed session next. The recommendation is, be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Meaford does now go into a closed session with the CAO, the Deputy Clerk, the Deputy CAO and Director of Corporate Services, and Director of Community Services in attendance. Number one, to discuss a proposal or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and that is under open meeting exemption C of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, respecting a strategic land acquisition. And two, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. That is under open meeting exemption K of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, respecting a facility licensing agreement. So I will be reporting out of this closed meeting at the conclusion. And I need a mover and seconder. Thank you. Councillor Uhrig, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Greenfield. So we will, as I say, report back following this closed meeting and adjourn at this point.
confirming about that.
Well, reporting out from our closed session this afternoon, we discussed two items. Respecting a strategic land acquisition, no direction was provided, and respecting negotiations, direction was provided to staff. Now we have a confirming bylaw to conclude, and but I have lost my my words for it. So this is one or two council meetings, or it's this council meeting, in fact. So this is just simply a vote to approve the fact that we had our meeting this afternoon. So could I get a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Greenfield and Councillor Erie, thank you. All in favor of accepting? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. And with that, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.